welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast, Brundi. We're gonna jump right in here at the start. I'm gonna hit you with one right out the gate, and we will get into why I'm asking this obviously in a second. But right off the top, do you think there should be a second award in the NHL for specifically defensive defensemen, the best shutdown guys in the league?
Absolutely, yeah. I've said it many times before, and I'll say it again. I totally believe that. Yeah, there should be an award for the best defensive defenseman. I mean, they say the Norris is for the best defenseman. It's really just the defenseman that puts up the most points, basically, or has an absurd amount of goals. Um, you have a bunch of awards for forwards that are kind of exclusively only for forwards. It feels like, and then you have a Selke form, which is the best defensive forward. So
Yeah,
I don't see why there shouldn't be one for defensemen who are good at what they do in terms of just being a good defensive defenseman and shutting down the other team.
I I completely agree. And like honestly, if they just made it the best, if they just made an award where it was basically the best defensive player in the league and forwards were even included, I wouldn't even hate that. And it would be similar to the Art Ross, where like it could be won by a defenseman. This could be won by a forward, but the odds of a forward being better defensively than a defensive defenseman for 26 minutes a night per game are very slim. But yeah, like I definitely think they should have one by now. And I do think if they introduce one into the league, one thing they'll have to do is they'll have to pick one of the what we know now as more advanced analytics. They would have to pick at least one or two of those and kind of start integrating them into more mainstream stats. Like when you look at the mainstream stats, you see the games played, you see the goals, assists, points, you see penalty minutes, and you even see plus minus. But beyond that, other than goalie stats, those are the main ones you see. And I do think that if we're gonna be people are gonna be awarding stuff based on defensive merit, well, we can't just go on plus minus, obviously. But you it makes for a lot more engaging conversation among fans and the media if we have a little bit more to go on that's more accessible to people, whether that's goals goals expected against while you're on ice being low or something like that. But I do think they should probably have some sort of defensive metric a little bit more accessible to the casual viewer. But that's the only thing that I would say with it. Like I would like that with the award. I definitely think it's overdue to have that defensive defenseman award.
Yeah, I completely agree, and um, I don't think I've said it on here before on the podcast here, but I have said before that I would like to see more of these because like it even kind of goes the same with the Selkie, right? Like there's a lot of the stats that they use aren't super accessible to us, or if they are, you have to do a lot of searching to kind of find them and whatnot. Where so it would be a lot easier for us just as fans and viewers and whatnot to just make it easier to kind of see those stats that they're looking at, and then it kind of allows us to maybe get a bit of a gauge better on who could be the best or most likely to win the Selkie, or who's just even playing the best kind of defensively as a forward right now. So for a second defenseman award, it's definitely necessary. But even if they don't bring an award in, I would still like to see it happen, just because like those are fun stats to look at, and it kind of really highlights some players and puts them on another level when you start to really look and see how good defensively um, they really are.
Yeah,
So I'm right there with you.
yeah, and honestly, like the NHL, I'm trying to remember what it's called. But the last year or two, they've been really pushing that new. I think it's a phone app and a website. It's like NHL. ice stats or something. I can't even remember, but
I think
like,
it's like NHL Edge or something.
oh yeah, it's NHL edging, right? And
Yeah.
they talk about all the advanced stats on there. I'm pretty sure you have to pay to be a part of that. Like, I kind of think it's like a
Oh, wouldn't
premium
surprise me.
thing. But like, if the NHL themselves would put out, like, instead of just like, yeah, having, you got to go to Money Puck or go to some dude's Twitter to find like these advanced stats. If the NHL could centralize them, make their own, and post them like online, like that would just be so good. And because right now we kind of almost have that problem a little bit with the Selkie. We were even talking about that last episode, how, you know, who's going to win the Selkie? Like, we can talk about the Hart, the Maurice Richard, we could talk about the Norris, we could talk about all those. The Selkie, probably Barkov, but like, I don't know if his defensive game has stayed the same, got better, got worse this year. Like, all the other guys trying to come up and take that spot from him. I don't know how they've been playing. Like, unless you watch all of them, you can't know. But all the other awards, you can look at stats, you can look at stuff, and you can kind of get a general lay of the land on what the voting would look like. Like,
Yeah.
the Selkie's about defensive forwards, but the only thing you could go off of is guys that you know are two-way players, and then looking at their point totals.
Yeah.
So it's pretty tough there too. So yeah, some of those stats would be really nice, but
Maybe one day. Maybe one day we'll
yeah.
be lucky enough to get that. It's something, advanced stats and all this stuff, like it's becoming a bigger thing now when talking about players, and especially it seems to be a frequent talking point in contract discussions and whatnot. So it would be nice for fans to have that luxury of having them more accessible to look at, and kind of they can make their inferences based on them. But
yeah, put it on
as
the
of right now,
score,
it's not the case. But
put it on TSN, put it there. Make it so people don't have to open up Google and put in Money Puck or whatever they'd have to do. Like,
yeah.
but I guess, do you want to talk about the reason that I would have brought this up?
Yeah. So not a whole lot of milestones or games played milestones around the league, but we do have one that Marc Edouard Vlasic is set to play in his 1300th NHL game tonight in Columbus. And during prior to the game tonight, kind of talking about it, he took a bit of a stance and said that the NHL should introduce a second award for defensemen. Obviously, one that kind of highlights the league's best defensive defenseman, as Vlasic was kind of one of those players in that boat during his prime. Not necessarily quite as much anymore, but again, one of those guys that was one of the best, if not the best, defensive defense in the league during his prime. And there was a lot of other guys that were the same way. They didn't put up the insane offensive numbers, but their defensive numbers were always outstanding. And those players unfortunately never really got highlighted to the level they should, or ever have the chance of winning an award. Because again, if you're a defenseman, really the only award you have a chance to win is usually, maybe not this year, but would be the Norris. But again, that goes to whoever puts up the most points, pretty much, or you're a good defenseman on a team that wins the President's Trophy or something like that. So congrats to Vlasic for making it to 1,300 NHL games, and kind of hoping, if he's already coming out saying that they should do the second award, I'm kind of hoping he keeps pushing for it.
A lot of guys want it
until it gets there.
I really do think a lot of guys want that award, and I don't think the NHL. I know there's a couple things, kind of like WWE, right? There's some places where it's like, there's too many championships, there's too much stuff, it loses value. I don't think the NHL is in any danger of that. If they add a couple more awards, I really do not think anyone's going to be like, oh,
well, no, because
who cares about him winning this award? Like, no, like,
because every award is its own set thing. It's not like a, especially in WWE, like UFC, totally different thing, because yeah, there's a lot of titles, but they each actually are very different. But yeah, like in WWE, you've got all these titles, but it's kind of like, all right, well, these two are the exact same. These two are like the exact same, and so on. Where in this, again, every award already is for its own thing, right? I mean, the Hart, you can, however you want to define it, you can define it. MVP, Art Ross points, Rocket Richard, that's most goals. Norris, defense who puts up the most points, basically. So they each have their own value because they're categorized basically on what the award is for. So if people think that bringing in this is just going to be like, oh, no, this would be great for the league, and it's great to highlight those players who, again, like, I'll say Vlasic because we were just talking about him during his prime was honestly probably a top 10 defenseman in the entire league. Now, any people will be like, oh, there's no way, but it's like, again, he was, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but especially through San Jose's playoff run in 2016, was the best defensive defenseman in the league. Went through 3 straight series and held the other team's top line. So I think it combined like 7 goals or something across, I don't know, 15, 16 playoff games. So
no, like,
yeah,
he was...
and he's a guy who never got the credit for it because there was no way he could, because we'd have a parade if he put up like 30 points, because that wasn't his game. But again,
yeah,
doesn't get highlighted for it because at the end of the day, his trophy case is completely empty.
And it's, and I genuinely do
actually,
think
well, he does have a gold medal. He does have a gold medal.
Oh, hell yeah, let's
Olympic
go.
gold medal. So that does count.
But honestly, I do think that they, oh jeez, oh my god, I completely lost it. Your gold medal blanked my mind. Oh, I've been destroyed. I've got it back.
Shiny.
Back then, I genuinely do think he was a top 10 defenseman in the league at that time, because back then, they still had very, very good defensemen at the top of the game, but they didn't quite have the caliber of guys we've got now. I don't think back then, like at least scoring wise, there was nobody putting up Cale Makar numbers, Quinn Hughes numbers, even Roman Josi numbers year in, year out. Erik Karlsson hit 100 points the other year. Like,
Erik Karlsson was kind of the one exceptions back then. Like, he was one of those few defensemen who was putting up insane point totals. But again, at that time, we'll say, beginning of the 2010s, how many were there? Right? Like you said, nowadays we got Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, we got Dahlin, we got Josi, Victor Hedman, Heiskanen,
but even
there wasn't much of that back then.
Yeah, and like even back then, I was gonna say Erik Karlsson was probably the best offensive defenseman back then at putting up points. He had 82 points in 82 games in 15-16. Other than that, he never passed 75 points until his 101 point season with the Sharks. He never even passed 75 other than that 1 year. Like, defensemen just straight up didn't score at that rate back then.
Yeah.
So when a guy was putting up 25, 20 points and playing incredibly elite defensive game, yeah, that makes you one of the best, because back then it was the forward score and the defenseman try. And it's not like defensemen have to put up 90 points to be a good offensive defenseman, but they just the very top of the league ones even then weren't putting up those points.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But we should move on from this.
Yeah, we could talk about another.
We got more to cover.
Another defenseman here, Simon Nemec, reportedly disgruntled with the Devils. He's not ruling out the possibility of a trade down the road. You do not want to hear this from a second overall pick from 2-3 years ago.
So I've actually got the quote from Nemec today. Not a super long one. He says, "I can't remember any number 2 draft pick that went to the farm for a third year. This coming after obviously starting the year out with the Devils, and then once it was Luke Hughes and someone else was it might have been Brett Pesce was injured to start the season, and once they were healthy and came back, it meant that both Simone Nemec, who had been looking very solid to start the year, and Seamus Casey, who was looking out of this world, I think having 3 goals in the team's first 3 games with the Devils, they were both sent down to the AHL. So he said, I can't remember any number 2 draft pick that went to farm for 3rd year. It's still too early to request a trade. If this situation continues, it will have to be addressed. So, like you said, obviously not hasn't requested a trade yet or saying I want out, but he's basically saying, if this
it's kind of an ultimatum
continues, and it kind of is, and New Jersey's probably gonna have to trade him. I think New Jersey's gonna have to move him.
Absolutely not. That you lose a trade with this guy. Oh my,
100% you do. But they did that to themselves by being like, we're trying to win the Stanley Cup this season and next year.
I think he's good enough to play for them for this year, though. Like,
I think he is, but they also have the best blue line in the entire league already.
And it's going to get worse having Nemec develop on that third line and improve and get even better. But fire one of those guys into the sun.
But so what do? You have Dougie Hamilton, no move clause. You wouldn't move him anyways.
No.
You've got Luke Hughes. You're obviously not moving him. Jonathan Kovacevic, who is kind of the wild card going into this season, he has come in and he's also making league minimum, which definitely helps the Devils. Obviously not a huge difference from Simone Nemec, who's on his ELC. But Kovacevic, I mean, 12 points in 46 games. He's a guy who kind of plays more of a defensive game. He's 6'4", 210, so he's a big body. So you're probably not moving on from him. Jonas Siegenthaler, again, he's blossomed so well with New Jersey. They're not going to move him. Modified no trade clause. And here's the issue now. You gave Brendan Dillon that 3-year deal at $4 million per year, and you gave Brett Pesce, I believe it was 7 years at 5.5. Both of them have a no trade clause.
Well, it sounds pretty obvious then. Kovacevic doesn't have the no trade, right?
Yeah, but he's been a beast for them.
It doesn't matter. I'm sorry, but Simon Nemec is going to be a million times better. You don't trade him because Kovacevic has a nice league min deal right now. Plus,
yeah, but you also know down the road
defenseman guy, like they could get some nice stuff back from a team looking to make a run. Probably send him over west, right? You don't want to face him in the first round, but a team like the Dallas Stars. The Avalanche,
doesn't work,
they would love a guy like that.
What do you do then? You just have Simone Nemec play third defensive pair for the next 4 or 5 years. You're going to end up having to pay him more than Kovacevic, and you're not going to have that luxury of money anymore once you got to pay guys like Luke Hughes, and actually I think Luke Hughes is actually the only one.
I think Nemec is one of those guys. Nemec is one of those guys. It's not like, what do you do with him if you have to pay other guys? He has to be the one you pay. I
mean, I'm not saying like it's not good for New Jersey to have to trade him, but they kind of did it to themselves by going all in. You didn't need to bring in both Brett Pesce and Brendan Dillon.
No, they did not, and that's rough.
And by all accounts, Seamus Casey's looking like he could be just as good, if not better, than Simone Nemec. What do you do with him now? Like he's the exact. I think him and Nemec actually went in this same draft together, if I'm not mistaken. Oh
no, maybe I'm higher on Simone Nemec than a couple other people, but like, I legitimately think in 4 or 5 years he could be like a Norris finalist. Like he looks like
he won't. I don't think he's going to put up the point totals to win the Norris.
I watched a couple of Devils games last year, and like it looked like so it's real early in both their careers, but he looked way better on the power play than Luke Hughes did. And Luke Hughes is touted as, he's the offensive defenseman guy. He's the guy who his thing is getting the points.
Yeah, I think he's kind of having to transition more towards playing a two-way game, especially with a guy like Dougie Hamilton already, who is running that top power play. Like you've got a log jam, and is kind of where they're at now. I thought Seamus Casey was a left-handed defenseman. He's actually right-handed as well. So, teams are out there dying and starving for right-handed defensemen, and New Jersey's got a whole stash of them stocked up right now. Not only that, in good top-end defensemen already, and in top-end prospects as well, which is a luxury I don't think any other team has, especially not Buffalo.
No, very few teams do.
Like, obviously it's not going to be a situation that boils down to, Nemec is going to request a trade by the deadline. Like, worst case scenario, he'd ride the season out. If he doesn't get a call up or something, then he might. Yeah. I mean, I don't feel bad for New Jersey because, again, this is they could have easily just only brought in one of Brendan Dillon or Brett Pesce, but they brought both in, gave them long-term deals, at least Brett Pesce, and they gave him no trade clauses. So
the no trade clause is the really stupid part, honestly. Like,
yeah,
that's the bad part, because if neither of those have trade protection, they're both very movable deals that people would take. Maybe Brendan Dillon's is a little rougher because he's 34 and it's for 3 years.
Brett Pesce's would be tough to move, I think, even without it. Good defenseman, but with those more defensive defensemen, those long-term contracts tend to get pretty rough near the end of them down the line.
Kovacevic, he's a UFA at the end of this year. You'd have to pay him. That's a whole problem with what they've got going on already. I don't think you want to tie too much money to him anyway. Ship him out.
You're not going to have to, though.
No, but like you wouldn't have to. You don't want to have to pay him to stick around and like take that money from other guys. I meant like on their cap hit.
Yeah.
But like ship him out, get whatever you can for him. You could get a decent return, nothing huge, but I do think at him making under $800K this year and being a solid blue liner, I think you could get something nice and then move him up, move Nemec up, and try and.
But again, is that going to be enough for Nemec to? Okay, you're playing in the NHL, but you're not getting power play time probably, unless you run two defensemen on your second pair, and then how much can you move up in the lineup? Like Dougie Hamilton's got that top spot locked in for at least, I would assume, 3 to 4 more years, and like does Brett Pesce then? It's. I mean, I agree with you. I think they got to find a way to keep Nemec, but I don't think it's this season.
I think you could make it work. I don't particularly know. I'm looking at the Devils lineup on Daily Faceoff. So they have it as the first pairing is Dillon and Hamilton, second is Siegenthaler and Kovacevic, and third is Hughes and Pesce. So I don't know if you take Kovacevic out, you put Nemec in. Do you move Pesce up to the second, go Siegenthaler Pesce, and then Hughes Nemec on the third? Or
you can't do Hughes Nemec, no.
Is it Siegenthaler Nemec and?
But again, here's the problem though that I'm still coming kind of back to is if you move out a guy like Kovacevic and you bring in Nemec and you tell him, hey, you're our guy now. Like you might run into the problem come playoff time if you're, especially a team like Washington, who is a big physical team. If Nemec is just getting bullied and around and, losing battles and whatnot, well, then what do you do? Because you now don't really have other options. And again, is what I'm saying is New Jersey's kind of
you could bring in a Seamus Casey if you need to.
No, as much as I like Seamus Casey, he's a smaller defenseman and he's more offensively minded. So,
I mean,
I love Seamus Casey, but in this situation, it's not.
I think more than anything, they'd be hoping he doesn't get bullied, and he really shouldn't be. He's not small; he's 6'1".
No, he's not a small guy by any means. But again, for young players, first time in the playoffs, it's obviously much different than regular season. The intensity's ramped up, and it's mostly just, again, because they're in the Metro. If you are playing a team like Washington, could be a little bit tough. Not saying it would be, but it could be. Whereas with Kovacevic, that's a nice big body, and that's kind of what New Jersey seems to be priding themselves on. Is like, not only is all their defensemen actually really good, but they're all big.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know who's the smallest.
And they're
might be Siegenthaler. He's 6'2", 220. Jeez.
Yeah.
Luke Hughes is the smallest at 6'2", 200 pounds.
And he's what, 20 years old?
Yeah. Yeah. So he's only gonna get bigger.
Luke Hughes, who RFA at the end of this year, doesn't have an extension yet. We know it's coming, but
yeah, it's coming eventually. Yeah.
Are they waiting to see if he doesn't produce a ton this season and then get him a little bit cheaper, or what's going on with that?
I kind of think so.
It's always weird when these teams are. It feels like the front office is cheering against them a little bit to try and get them cheaper because they do want the player, but they want them to have a down year.
Yeah. But that is something to keep an eye on with the Devils, and do they make a trade down the line to move someone out to bring Nemec up, or what will kind of we'll keep looking around on that. They also have Anton Salayev, who they just drafted as well. Let's not forget about that. That's another guy who's coming up probably next year into the system.
That's another one. So
they're gonna have to move out so many defensemen.
Yeah, again, they sure are. Why did they sign?
Brett Pesce and Brendan Dillon both didn't make sense. You could have just brought in one. You didn't need both.
Holy crap! You're so right, man. What are they doing?
I totally forgot about Salayev, and I was just like, oh no, yeah, they took him as well.
People are thinking he was going to go in the top 3 or top 5 for a bit there. Like they thought might be the first defenseman taken, and then all of a sudden he dropped to what, 11, 10? Good God.
10, yeah.
Yeah, those. Dude, push comes to shove, like they might have to bite the bullet and buy a guy out.
It's also weird.
Pick the best candidate and just buy him out. Like, make some room. Holy.
Don't get me wrong. I think Salayev is going to be a very good defenseman, but it's like, out of those 6 defensemen in the 2024 draft, he was 5th or 6th for me, I think. And the fact that they took him 10, and then the next 2 defensemen after was Sam Dickinson and Zeke Boyum, like, imagine New Jersey, what's on their team right now. They have Nemec and Casey there, and if they had Dickinson or Zeev there, like,
that'd be nasty.
That would be insane. Their blue line would be, whatever way they sliced it, it would end up being one of the best of all time, I think.
Honestly, yeah. And it is really good right now. That's why they have this problem. There's too many good players, but
too many.
If guys aren't happy being in the AHL, you gotta do something about it. So
yeah,
we'll see what they do.
Moving on, quick news with Toronto. It seems to be every time we're talking about Toronto is an injury, and this time is no different. John Tavares is week to week with a lower body injury after he kind of just fell in practice. It wasn't hit or wasn't even during a game, just kind of took an awkward tumble in practice, and we know he's out for a couple of weeks now. It sounds like at least a couple of weeks.
And it's really too bad because he's been having a real solid year. 42 points, 44 games, 20 of them goals. He's on pace for he could have hit, if without this injury, he was not on pace, but he could very easily get 40 goals on a season. Like I think I mean 44 games, 20. So his current pace is probably like 38 or 39.
Yeah. He was, and that was all with Austin Matthews out. Obviously, Matthews is going to score some goals, but definitely could help Tavares probably get 1 or 2 more on the power play.
Yeah, like
that's tough for Toronto. You get Matthews back, and not long after, now you lose Tavares. Like they're having a tough time just getting their big guys all healthy and out there.
They really are, and they just don't care, and they just keep winning. Currently, they are on a 3-game losing streak, but they are still at the top of the Atlantic Division. So, they're still doing pretty good. Man, Washington's running away with the freaking entire East. Oh my God.
Yeah.
They're 7 points up on the second in the entire conference. Good God. And those teams have all played more games than them. What the fuck, man? We both had them at 7th.
The team's just buzzing. It's good coaching. Players have bought in. You can run 4 lines, 3 defensive pairs, and not. Seems like you don't even have to worry about line matching because you're just all your lines are contributing every night. It feels like for them. Things are just rolling for them right now.
I really do.
And they're getting great goaltending. They're getting
Yeah.
great goaltending out of their tandem in Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren.
Canada has really good goalies. I think it's underrated how good Canada's goalies are. They're not as, if the best American and the best Russian goalies were to face Canada's, I think they're better. But, unfortunately, a lot of the best ones for Canada are not going to the Four Nations. But, Mackenzie Blackwood, Logan Thompson should probably both be on that team.
Yeah, I agree. And, obviously Capitals are running a tandem right now, but I mean, it almost makes you wonder if to really just, especially if you're going to make a charge for the President's Trophy, top of the East. I like Charlie Lindgren a lot, but I think you got to start giving the nod to Logan Thompson for a couple of games here and there extra. His save percentage of 921 to Lindgren's 900. Logan Thompson has a 2.23 goals against to Lindgren's 2.65. Logan Thompson just recorded a shutout the other night for his first of the season. Charlie Lindgren doesn't have one yet, so they're way up there, and they only have one shutout on the year. But here's the big thing. Lindgren has a record of 10, 8, and 2. Logan Thompson has a record of 19, 2, and 3.
Good God.
So that's 24 games played for Logan Thompson. Yeah, like...
Dude, he's killing it over there. I think people really do underestimate how much vibes go into a team's performance. Like, comparing them to a lot of other teams in the league, they can be at the top of the standings all they want. I don't know if this team is, in a vacuum, a playoff team in this current NHL. But the vibes are on. Everyone's feeling it. Everyone's going out there every night saying, we're going to kick their ass. And then they do. And that builds confidence for the next one. And they do it again. Like, the vibes are on and they can't be stopped. Dude, the Columbus Blue Jackets are on a 5-game win streak, 8-2-0. That roster should not be sniffing the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're running away with the wild card spot.
Also, quickly, Logan Thompson has a 41 out of a possible 48 points he could have gotten the team this year.
Like, I mean, we were talking last episode about if any guys could even
Columbus isn't running away with the wild card.
They're starting to make some ground.
You got one point on Ottawa, 2 on Montreal.
I guess the other teams in the Atlantic are winning as well. I was looking at the Metro. We were talking last episode how they were all right in there within like 3 points. Columbus is now at 48, and the next closest is 44 with the Philadelphia.
It definitely does help Columbus with, obviously, Philly and Pittsburgh kind of right where we expected them to be, like about 500 teams, kind of in the playoff fight, but not really in the playoff fight. But teams like the Rangers and Islanders who have, been in the playoffs last couple of years, obviously both teams having good success in a couple of years. Both those teams really have taken, a couple steps back this year, it feels like. So,
I mean, the Rangers
in a normal year where...
they're horrible.
Although, I will say Rangers, I think it was kind of a fluky Presidents, as crazy as that sounds, because obviously you have to be the best team out of 82, but they weren't a scary team by any means. Like, usually when you're talking about teams that win the Presidents, you're kind of like, fuck, I don't want my team to have to go up against them. But it was like, okay, obviously they're going to beat the Capitals, but
I mean, I think they were probably the second scariest team in the East to face off. And the other scariest team won the cup. Like there's not another team in the
No.
East where like if
I
I'm
would have
thinking
been more
Tampa
scared of
versus any of
Carolina,
them,
probably. The only scary thing about the Rangers was just Shesterkin, really.
they have a lot of guys who can put up good points. Their power play's elite.
But
Like
do they?
they got some big
Do
mean
they?
bastards
Look
on
at their
that team.
team. Do they?
Well, not this year, but last year.
It's almost the exact same team.
Panarin put up 120 points. Well, I'm talking about last year. Like, what was it a fluke
but
that
that's
they
what I'm
won
saying.
it? They
Like,
were
it
dangerous
was,
last year.
that's why I'm saying it was kind of fluky. Like all these
I think
guys were
this
having
is the fluke
career
year.
years.
I think next year they'll be in the playoffs if they don't blow it up. They have too much talent. You've got a legitimate Art Ross contender in Panarin, a Norris guy in Fox, and a Vezina in Shesterkin, and you've got pretty good surrounding pieces. Like,
but like Zibanejad's taken a step back.
That's
Kreider
the
has.
biggest
Hopefully,
thing. A couple of those
Kreider,
top 6 guys are taking sizable steps back too. Not a little bit off, pretty bad.
And for the Rangers, though, if you're going to be back in the plus next year, you need to hope that with Zibanejad and Kreider, it's not regression. It's just bad year.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like just bad year. Lafreniere, he, really kind of came out of his shell and blossomed last year, got that big contract. He's taken a step back this year. There is some nice parts that Philip Hila has looked good in his being able to stay healthy in the lineup. Will Cooley has been
unreal,
fantastic out of nowhere, but
this is the opposite of the Caps. They just
Andre Miller is another guy.
When the vibes are bad, they're fucking bad, and like that. Like honestly, the Sabres have a wild card-ish roster, but they have 12, 13 years of bad vibes they have to try to get off their back, and it's tough. And that's why they're at the bottom of the Atlantic. The vibes will just weigh you down, and if everyone goes into every practice, every game going, fuck, here we go again. Can't wait to get shit rocked, and then the media is like, damn, they suck again. Like, yeah. It's tough, man. Like, yeah. I do not doubt that's what's happening with those two teams. But we'll see if they come out of it next year. Maybe not.
We kind of knew, like, the Islanders are kind of in that spot where you have to retool. Like,
yeah.
As fun of a team as they can be on some nights, the current core you have is not winning you a cup. So you have to address that. And I think you can by doing a quick retool because you already have a lot of nice pieces in place. Now you just have to, unfortunately, because some of them are their better players at this moment, move out from some of your older guys and bring in younger, faster players, essentially, is kind of what you have to do. With Columbus, obviously, yeah, they are having a terrific year. They are, not even just being a playoff spot, but their record is better than what we thought it was going to be. So, yeah, like, I don't really know much more saying that, but they are having a very terrific season.
Yeah, the Islanders. I hope they get a new GM sometime soon. I get annoyed every single time I open up their cap wages and look at just what I see their draft picks. I'm immediately reminded of how boring that GM is. Not the on ice product, the office. They are missing their second rounder next year. That's it. No extra picks. Another movement. They just don't make moves. You can't win the cup without doing stuff.
No, they always plan for that year. They're because obviously, they're at least at this point now, like a couple years ago, they were shelling out picks left and right and making moves because they were buyers. But they're kind of in that spot where and this is why I'm saying I think they need to retool because they're not buying and they're not selling. But they still make moves. Like they made that was a bizarre move at the time. They made that trade with Chicago like 3 weeks before the draft, moving some of their picks around. So, but again, that's why I'm saying, retool, because you're clearly not a buyer and you're not a full-on seller. So
they seem married to a lot of guys that are like 33 or older. Like
exactly,
they just have way too many older guys. I get it. Matt Martin's been fun, but like 35 years old. He's not a lot on your cap hit. You could probably keep him, but you don't need to bring him back, I don't think. Like,
well, they didn't even bring him back to start the year. They signed him after they had so many injuries to start the year, so they just brought him in. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Right here, status PTO. I don't even know if he has an actual contract officially. Then
he does now. Actually, I think he does. I think he does have an actual contract now.
It says he's making $775K.
Yeah.
So
okay, so he does then.
So
he does
must
have an actual contract. Yeah.
But like Anders Lee, 34, Brock Nelson, 33, Palmieri, 33, JG Pajot, 32, Casey Cizikas, 33. That's just the forward core. Like that's
so you can hold on to Pajot, I think, because he is still one of the better, two-way forwards in the league, and he's one of the best face-off guys in the league.
Like, is he going to help you win when you want to win? Like, I don't think this team's 2 years away from winning. He's 32.
Okay, so maybe
I thought he was Nelson, in his 20s. I thought he was younger.
Brock Nelson, yeah, I think you need to move on from him at the deadline this year.
And that would easily get
you could get a first and a
decent prospect.
A good prospect. No, not even decent. You could get a good prospect, especially I was
trying to think of one rank down from a blue chip prospect.
Yeah. You could get a great prospect. What's Anders Lee's contract?
Anders Lee is modified no trade. Looks like that
2
is
years.
A 15-team no trade. He has $7 million per year for 2 years.
So this year and one more year.
Yeah.
Okay,
so if you retain to get that to 3.5,
retain half again.
Lee, that's nice.
You retain half, you get a first and a mid-range prospect for Anders Lee right there.
And he's a captain, which means teams are going to love the locker room leadership aspect. Like we know that counts. So a playoff team would love a guy like that.
Kyle Palmieri, he's got value still. You don't even have to retain on him. You could if you maybe want to boost that value, and he is on the last year of his deal. I don't know if Palmieri gets moved because he is from the area there. The only reason he was willing to accept a trade out of New Jersey was because he was literally just going right over to the Islanders. So Palmieri might be a guy that you just hold on to, and you're still going to get at least 20 goals a year out of him. And if he just wants to stay at home and be at home, you know what? Can't fault the guy there.
But he does have a 16-team no trade. So if you do find a team not on there that does want him, you could also make it happen. But
you could, but
depending on what the return is,
definitely kind of have a thing of doing right by their players. Yeah.
There's doing right by your players, and then, if somebody's offering you a first for him, it's like, oh, well, I mean, it'd kind of be stupid not to take it, especially if we're not bringing him back next year.
Yeah, but
or you could sign him in the offseason.
I was going to say, it doesn't hurt to hold on to a guy like Palmieri. I think Lee and Nelson, you do have to move on from, especially given their ages, and their value is never going to be higher than it is right now. Pelech and Pulock, I mean, if you get an offer for him that's good enough, I think you do it.
They're both 30 even, and they both have full no trades.
Yeah, so they'd have to be
So probably not, but theirs are reasonable contract numbers, and they're both not too old. They're on the older side, but they're not that much.
You could still get value for both of them.
Yeah. I think you could get good value keeping both of them for sure. And looks like both of them. Okay, so Pelech has a starting this offseason, it goes to a 16-team no trade list, and Pulock starting in 27-28, it goes to a 16-team no trade. So eventually you can do stuff with them. Pelech, you could do it sooner. But I don't know how much moving those guys is as important. They need to lock up Dobson if they can as well.
See, you know what? I think if you get the chance to pull off a big trade and move out Dobson, I don't even hate doing that. Again, I think he's a great offensive defenseman, but he's just not good in his own end, and that really hurts them on a lot of nights if he's not putting up points.
But who's his partner?
He's playing
probably
with
Scotty Mayfield.
Romanov, who is a great defenseman, and I think you hold on to him as he's a great second pair guy to have for the next while. Like they've got a lot of good pieces still in play that you hold on to, like a Horvat,
Obviously
Holmstrom,
Sorokin.
probably honestly even Dobson, Sorokin, Romanov, Barzal. Like you just got to move out some of your older players.
Marcus Hogberg, what a great name. Their backup goalie.
That's a solid name.
Their backup goalie. Does that mean Varlamov is injured? Yes.
Yeah, he's been out for a while, I'm pretty sure. Oh, and you got Duclair, who's only played 15 games this year, but
he's 29.
Hold on to him.
So yeah, keeping him around.
You've got him till about 33, 34, and then I think he probably starts to dip just because his biggest asset is his skating, and that's naturally gonna go down over time. So
yeah, they got good pieces, but it's crazy because obviously, for those who don't know, our dad is a Islanders fan, and so like we, keep up on them a decent bit. Brundy more than me, I would say. But like so many of these guys on this team are guys that like I remember dad talking about like legitimately like 8, 9, 10 years ago. And like they're just like they're kind of going into a rebuild, but they're just all still there.
Yeah. Like and the unfortunate part is with this core, as good as it can or as good as people may want to say it is, their window has closed. Like they had their window a couple years ago. They had,
back-to-back conference finals.
Pretty much for the first 4 or 5 years after Tavares left. Which crazy enough, best thing that could have ever happened to the Islanders was Tavares leaving in the end.
Because it fixed the vibes.
Yeah.
They were riding high, man.
And they had their chance. They had Barry Trotz. It's new era now. They gotta not start over, but you got to reassess your game plan. Is
they don't have to tear it down.
Where you're at is just not working. Yeah,
you move out some of the and you know what? Maybe don't even go for first rounders and stuff. Like why do that when you could go after a guy who was taken in the first or second round that has developed 2 or 3 years. Move out of Brock Nelson and bring in a guy that I don't have a specific name in mind, but like a guy that is clearly doing well and going to be good in the future. I'm trying to think of a random example. Okay, so I don't think it would be 1-for-1, but like the basis of a trade, Braden Yeager is on the Jets, right?
Yeah.
The Jets want to freaking win this year, and they look damn good. Like, if you send a Brock Nelson 50% retained, he only costs $3 million to the Jets for Yeager or something like that. Like going after a guy like that would be what I think they should do. Guys that are a couple years into
Winnipeg, because I think Winnipeg would be all over a Brock Nelson or a Ryan Pulock if he became available.
Yeah.
They'd be all over either one of them.
And Winnipeg, I mean, it's not a very desirable location, but it kind of also is right now if you want to win because they look damn good. So this might be one of the very few times we could see a guy waive a no trade for the Winnipeg Jets, which would honestly be cool to see.
I would love it. Moving on. Penguins put goaltender Tristan Jarry on waivers. We do know that he cleared waivers and is going down to the AHL, and that sucks. That's tough.
It's rough. He hasn't been able to do it. He's had some injury issues. He just can't seem to keep up. It's rough, but yeah, it is what it is. And eventually you can't just let him get shelled forever. Eventually you got to make the move.
It's kind of funny when we're looking at it. We were talking about Fleury. I don't know if we talked about Fleury fully retiring or committing to his retirement on earlier this week. But it's kind of funny when you think about like Fleury's still in the league playing. He's on a good team. He's got a chance to chase for a cup this year with Minnesota. And the goalie who kind of pushed him out of Pittsburgh and replaced him, Matt Murray, his in the AHL now, and the goaltender that kind of pushed out and took over Matt Murray's job in Pittsburgh. Jarry, now he's in the AHL, so
yeah. And
I mean, maybe Pittsburgh didn't make the right call there.
I mean, it really looked
but
like they
during
did
the
for a
time, it
bit.
looked like they made the right call. Yeah,
1920 over 33 games, a 921, 21-22, 58 games, a 919. Like, this guy should have been a stud, and then just 909, still good. 903, less good. 886 this year. 926 in the AHL in 5 games.
Can get it done in the AHL.
He clearly still has the talent. Yeah, he just needs to be able to put it together. And maybe it's one of those cases where he just needs the time off. He needs a long summer to rehab anything and recalibrate, get back into it. But
Are you talking about Jarry or Matt Murray?
take your pick. I was talking about Jarry.
Okay. I was going to say Matt Murray. I think
Murray's had a lot more injuries.
That point now. Yeah, we're past point. Jarry, I just think Jarry needs to go play somewhere else. I really do. Pittsburgh does not have a great defensive system. I think Jarry. I think he just needs to be anywhere else. And I think he wouldn't be an elite goalie, but I think he's a goalie that can win you games. I don't think he's going to hurt you, but it's just not going to work in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what his contract looks like, but
I don't think it's great.
Because I got to imagine that's why no team even took a flyer on him.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's funny you say flyer because I texted you saying I think Philadelphia should have.
Yeah.
Because Philly's, Urson's been decent, and if you're Philly, you're clearly not going for a rebuild. You're not trying to get high picks. You're trying to make the playoffs, evidently. Why not take a chance on a guy like Jarry? You've got the money.
5.375.
Can't be worse than what you've got.
So basically 5.4 mil per year, modified no trade until 2028. It's not great.
It's not great, but it's better than any other option Philly has. And I think he'd be better than what they're getting, at least. He can't be worse than what they've been getting.
I think he could be. He's in the AHL.
Well, if they claim Jarry, he wouldn't go to the AHL.
No, but an 886 is what he has in Pittsburgh. If he replicates that, that's worse than what they've gotten from their guys.
Yeah, but I don't think he would. I think Philly has a much better defensive system in play than what Pittsburgh has.
Probably, but
Philly's got the better blue line. They've got the better defensive forwards. Crosby, we're not
to upgrade your goaltending to maybe 900, and taking a decent sized salary for 4 more years is just a bit much, I feel like.
But like Philly doesn't need that money right now.
No, but that money goes into the future. Like for
and
4 more years.
If you grab Jarry and he starts, playing better, you can easily move it then.
If he plays better, or you could be saddled with it now.
I like what Philly's doing, but Philly ain't fucking sniffing the playoffs by the end of the season with their current goaltending. So take a goalie for free, or you got to go out and pay to get one. And the goalie market's kind of already been set by Colorado.
I think you could get a better goalie for less assets that you would be sending versus the cap space that Jarry takes up. But we'll see what happens. Maybe he lights it up in the AHL, makes his way back. I'd love to see it.
I just don't think it's going to work in Pittsburgh.
I don't.
The Penguins just don't put any goalie in a position to succeed. Really, they are dead last in the league. Shots allowed per game, they're third last in the league.
They have trouble scoring, so they keep addressing scoring, and they're, the drowning kid being the kid being held up, Crosby, the kid who's drowning, they're scoring, and then the skeleton in the bottom of the pool is goaltending and defense. Nobody's even thinking about that.
Like Nedeljkovic has an 8.86 save percentage, a 3.4 goals against. Joel Blomqvist, he has a 904 save percentage,
for him.
Not bad, but a 3.61 goals against.
That's a really good save percentage for do you say 3.16 or 3.61?
3.61.
Oh, bro, stop. He's stopping shots with the save percentage too. Like, he's just getting shelled.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Look out, Hellebuck. This guy's going to make the most saves this year. Good god. Like, dude's probably averaging like 35 or more shots against a game. Like, that's crazy. Those numbers are drastic.
Honestly, probably.
That's like when you see a guy with like a minus 40 plus minus, and you're like, plus minus isn't great, but like this clearly tells a story here.
Yeah.
How many of these have we gone through? We got a couple more to get through. But we got a little bit of news over in the KHL.
Oh, do you want to do the Minnesota Nashville one quickly there? We can just kind of rattle that one off.
Oh, sure.
That one we won't talk about that one for long.
Yeah, Minnesota
even anything.
Yeah, Minnesota Wild forward Marcus Foligno was saying that Zachary Leroux over Nashville will have to pay the price, is what he said, for injuring Spurgeon earlier in the season. A couple weeks ago now, I think it was near the end of December. That was the slew foot that Leroux did on Spurgeon.
Might have actually been like the New Year's Eve game.
It might have been, actually. Yeah, I think he did end up getting, I think it was a 3-game suspension. This is the guy we talked about before who had like 9 suspensions in the Q, 2 in the O. One of them was a 10-game suspension for stabbing a fan with his stick. Like it was wild. This guy's just a meathead, and Marcus Foligno is saying, yeah, this guy took a suspension and now he's back playing, and Spurgeon hasn't played since. And he says we're pissed about it. Leroux also did turn down a fight after he did that. A guy clearly went and was like, you need to answer the bell, and the next play, and he said, nope, I'm not doing that. So he's not even going to stick up for it after he does some dirty shit. Foligno said this, of course, because the two teams are going to face off against each other this Saturday. So if you're around and you don't got your team playing, maybe check that game out, the Preds versus the Wild, because it might get feisty.
So I've got 2 things to say, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. First one, I don't care, because I've already seen people be like, "Oh, Leroux's just a young guy; he doesn't have to fight." And he 100% has to fight someone. He 100% has to drop the gloves, and he has to stand up for what he did. Because it wasn't an accidental thing; it was on purpose, and he injured Minnesota's captain. So he should answer the bell for it, and I hope he does. Secondly, it shouldn't be Marcus Foligno, though. It should be a Ryan Hartman.
I was hearing Yakov Trenin's name got
Trenin. Okay,
I think he might have been the guy who tried to fight him, and he said no.
It's got to be someone more in Leroux's weight class at least, right? It like Marcus Foligno would pummel him and whatnot, but that's just not Marcus Foligno's game. Like he's not one of those guys that goes out there and is like, oh, you're a I don't know how big Leroux is, but I don't think he's super big. But Foligno's game isn't like, hey, you're the small guy, I'm gonna fight you. Like he handles the bigger guys when needed. So I think Leroux should fight, but I think it should be someone from Minnesota that's more in Leroux's weight class at least.
Yeah, that's fair. And Zachary Leroux is 5'11", 197. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't have Marcus Foligno fight him then.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like that's,
and of course he's not gonna. Of course he's not gonna accept that fight.
Marcus Foligno, who's 6'3", 230 pounds. So
yeah. And so this is actually pretty. I guess this doesn't quite tie into it as much, but so I'm reading off my own comment history on Reddit. I made this yesterday in regards to when a player makes a big clean hit, but a guy gets injured and then somebody goes in to fight him. Because a lot of people really don't like that. But so what I put is during a shift, if I hear the crowd roar, turn around and my guy is on the ice and you're standing over him, I want to throw hands and I don't care what happened. Like I turn around, my guy's down, you're up. It doesn't really matter to me if it's clean. I get from a fan's perspective, but from down there, that said, I think it should also be more acceptable for that guy if the hit is clean. Again, the LaRue case, it was not, and not even a hockey play, honestly. I think it should be more acceptable for that guy to turn the guy down from fighting, you know? If the guy comes over, confetti gloves at you, and you made a nice clean hit, took the body, not the head, skate away, get behind the ref, go off onto the bench, just keep skating away, whatever. Like,
and we have seen guys do that.
Make
before.
This guy skate after you without his gloves like a freaking idiot. Like,
we have seen guys do that before. Where they're just like, yeah, I'm not gonna fight.
Yeah,
that is one of the things I always look for when it's a big hard hit.
Like,
no, you don't come back from that. You get branded. If you're okay with being branded for it, then go.
That's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. You should not be branded as a turtler if you make a clean hit and then say no, piss off, I'm not fighting. If you do what exactly LaRue did, I think you need to.
I think you just keep your gloves on. You grab his jersey, you just keep him away, and the linesman will get in there right away. Because if you're not dropping your gloves and you're just kind of holding the guy like I'm not fighting you, the linesmen are going to come in and. But I will say the one thing I always do look for when there is a big hit and then a fight breaks out, the guy who, goes in to defend his teammate, I always look and see, did they see the hit or were they like not looking? And then, you hear a big hit. People are going nuts for a big hit. You look over and your teammate's injured. Like, you're naturally going to be like, look, I'm going in because otherwise you look like a tool if your teammate gets run from behind and you just keep going on about it. Like, you don't know what happened. You just see your teammate injured. So I always do look for the guy who goes in to fight. Did he actually see the hit, or
it's really important?
Is he just being like, hey, my guy's down, I'm stepping up for him type of thing?
Yeah, because they're two of the bigger things in that directly are related to on-ice product for the NHL that people will complain about their team or other teams the most. A guy made a big clean hit and now guys are going in to fight. You can't make a good hit anymore. Hitting's dead in the game. But also, oh my God, our guy got injured. Nobody's doing anything. Everyone's baby shit. Nobody's doing anything. Like, there's a middle ground, obviously. And, context matters. Was it a dirty hit? Did the guy see it? If he didn't see it, none of the other stuff really matters. It's just vibes based on what number is he? What's the name on the back? Is it Tom Wilson? Oh, it was probably a piece of shit. I'm gonna go cross check him. Oh, was it was it freaking Crosby? Like, you probably didn't mean to brain the dude. I'll go take a 2-minute roughing instead of mugging him. Like, it's weird. But LaRue, that was a dirty ass play from a guy who has 35 games in the league and already an incredibly long resume prior of dirty plays. So this guy gets absolutely zero benefit of the doubt. I don't care that he's 21. This guy has been a menace ever since he stepped on the ice. So he's if he doesn't answer the bell on his own, someone else might just come over and beat the crap out of him while he's still got his gloves on.
Yeah. And the thing is if if for LaRue, it's one of those things where, when you're out there and someone says, hey, let's drop the gloves, whoever it is, you drop the gloves and have that tilt, it's done. Guys aren't going to actively be headhunting you and whatnot because you manned up, you dropped the gloves, and that's how it's settled in the game. But if you refuse to, you got to keep your head up all night, because then every player on Minnesota, instead of fighting one guy and just getting over it, you're going to have 18 guys who are out there looking to blow you up anytime they can.
Yeah. And
so you just take your quick beating, or you dish a couple up, maybe you win the fight. And still then it's you move on. It's just about doing that initial fight, because that's the way it goes in the NHL right now. Doesn't matter whether you win or lose the fight. You just got to actually stand up for what you did. And he should. It was the Slufa, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you have to then. You're pulling that shit off. Yeah. You're drop the mitts.
Yeah. And Yeah, that like you said, you said it perfectly there when you just said that's just the way it is in the NHL today, and sometimes that's not fun. Remember when Tavares got kneed in the face in the playoffs, and like absolutely brutal injury,
Yeah,
and who did that? Was it Perry?
it was Corey Perry.
And he was gutted, man. He did not mean to do that. Play was going so fast. He looked upset, visibly upset afterwards. And I don't even remember who it was afterwards. I think it might have been Spezza or something, but somebody came over and was
Nick
like,
Foligno.
Nick Foligno comes over. It's like, we have to fight now. And
And even Foligno didn't want to. He's like,
no,
we
didn't.
have to. Like,
And
I will. And Perry didn't even
or,
throw a punch though.
No, Perry dropped the gloves and he like leaned his head back and kind of protected, but he just
took a couple shots.
He took some shots and then he went down because he was like, "Fuck." I mean, that's just. He's like, I didn't mean to do it, but like, yeah, like it's just fucked. Like that's just kind of how it is.
And,
so
and even the guy who
sucks.
stood up for his teammate Foligno, like he's like, I don't fucking want to, but we have to. Basically, it's like, well, you don't have to, but they did anyways.
I think he kind of do have to. It's one of those situations where we're talking about Toronto. Everything has to be different. If he doesn't fight, then even though nobody wanted to, after the game, everyone would have been like, this happens to your captain and nobody fights. Toronto's the softest team to ever exist. Like, that
is true. Yeah. And even if people knew it was an accident, it would still be that narrative. I completely agree.
Yeah. People who don't watch the game, all they hear is Corey Perry kneed Tavares and he was barely conscious on the ice and nobody fought. And they go, okay, Toronto's the biggest joke. Like, the context matters, and like, unfortunately,
I'm right there
sometimes
with you.
It's weird like that. But yeah, I mean, both teams also in the Central though, like that could spark a legitimate rivalry going forward. And yeah, we'll see if he answers the bell, I guess, and who decides to fight him as well. Because he is slightly on the undersized end, so which kind of surprised me considering how boisterous this guy is with his dirty plays. Like he's really going after it.
Which I kind of hope that this starts rivalry because, like, I'm not an active watcher of every like Minnesota Nashville game, but those are two teams that like it's kind of like you don't really have a rival. Like you've got teams in your division that maybe dislike, but like you don't really have an active rivalry. It feels like. So it's like, man, if these two teams kind of start, and I mean, Minnesota is obviously going to keep getting better. Nashville should be better, but for some reason they're not. Like these are teams that we could see in the playoffs in a couple of years go up against each other, and that would be a very that'd be a fun little clash to watch.
Yeah, they're two teams that really feel like they've flown under the radar for a long time with a lot of fans. And Nashville was supposed to start really making waves this year. Unfortunately, they didn't. Minnesota did, but it feels like a team that should have a rival. I could see these teams being like each other's, like in their top 3 rivals.
Yeah,
but we've never really seen that.
Yeah,
it might be fun to see.
Yeah, it's just kind of that divisional thing, right? It's like when you're rivals, it's just teams in your division, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's probably a little one there, but like again, it's not one of those like kind of bigger ones. And I think this could have the making of being a big one because rivalries only really matter if the two teams are good.
Yeah.
Like if once one team starts rebuilding, the rivalry's kind of put on hold until they're good again.
Yeah, like because. Yeah, like I just felt bad for Florida for years because they just kept not being good. And then all of a sudden they're good. And it's like, oh, I just like them now. And that's fun. Exactly. But like I never even really thought about what a matchup means to the teams when it was Dallas versus Tampa. That was never a matchup that had any intrigue for me. And then we played them in the finals in 2020. And then the next year there was the weird different divisions. And you only played within your divisions and they got lumped into ours. So all of a sudden we went from like not dealing with them to having this 6-game cup final series. And then I think we played them
like 8 times.
I think it was 8 times.
Yeah.
And there was one stretch where I think we played them 3 times in a row. And that was a bloodbath. And I was like, holy crap. Like we're rivals with the Dallas Stars. I had actually no opinion on them before that. Like,
Yeah.
And that was fun. And unfortunately, we don't play them like ever now that we're back to this. So it's faded. But like when you play
When it
them
was
with any
there, it was
consistency,
there.
it's fun.
Yeah. All right, now we can shift. Wrap that up again. I agree with you. If your team's not playing, or you got some free time on Saturday, aside from the NFL playoffs, definitely check this game out. It probably will be a rough physical game. So if that's your cup of tea, it's time for it. It's probably more physical, honestly, than the NFL playoffs at this point. Let's be real. All right,
There's a
we can
good
move
chance
on
of it.
to KHL news. We got a couple here.
Yeah, we got two different pieces. So one, Tony D'Angelo
Ooh.
is leaving the SKA St. Petersburg team. Tony cited that it was for family reasons 2 days ago when it was announced. Today, the team coach and a bunch of players came out and said they didn't say that it wasn't family reasons, but they did all say it didn't work out with him here because nobody liked him. They went into quite a bit of detail, saying that he would just all he cared about was money. He'd talk about getting his his bonuses based on performance. He would take longer shifts than normal, yell at power play players when they wouldn't score, but he'd pass it to them. He'd complain to the coach when he wasn't on both power play unit. He had be a pro syndrome. He wanted to be the guy everywhere. He didn't care about anything but his point totals. And it sounds like he was just a dick all around as well. Apparently, most people just knew him as "fuck you" guy because he would just say "fuck you" to everybody. And it's like, you're not making friends, man. So
yeah, so I mean, if that's true, like he's done.
I mean, where do you go after the KHL? The KHL is where you go when you're a dickhead but good at hockey.
You know what? Actually, if I was gonna say, you know what, because he actually was putting up good numbers in the KHL, he was gonna go to the All-Star game there. Ivan Demidov gets to go now. Now that D'Angelo is no longer on a team, so he can't go. Yeah, honestly, probably another KHL team does sign him just because they've got a better chance to win with a player of his skill. So
probably
at some point, he probably lands on his feet back in the KHL. But like,
I don't think he plays
North
again.
America return.
Yeah, he's not going back to North America, and he might be able to find like an Italian league or a Swiss league that takes him, but even then, like it would.
I don't think. I literally think the only team that would is a KHL team.
Yeah, like even then, like I doubt they'd want him. And if he did get there, I think he would get kicked out pretty quick. I think it's pretty much KHL or bust for him, which is wild. We've seen so many guys get, sent out, or even if you want to call it the hockey equivalent of getting canceled, and then sent to the KHL, and that's where they all go. I don't know if I've ever heard of a guy pissing off the KHL like that.
Yeah,
you got to be pretty abrasive to do that.
Yeah, so don't know where Tony D'Angelo's off to next, but it definitely ain't playing in the KHL right now.
Yeah. And another piece from the KHL, rumors have been circulating as of late that Maxim Shabanov, a 5'8", 157-pound, 24-year-old left winger, is going to be signing in the NHL potentially later this season, but it sounds more likely that he wants to come over during the summer.
Because he won't be eligible to sign before the trade deadline.
Right.
And then after the trade deadline passes, team could sign him, but he wouldn't be able to play. So it'll be one of those ones where
honestly, maybe a team probably should. A team probably should sign him in April or something as soon as he's available. Even if you can't play him, like if he looks like he's going to be good next year, bring him in for next year. Don't worry about bringing him in for the playoffs. But
no. But what I'm saying is, like, usually, like we saw it with a couple guys, last year and the year before. It usually comes around like once the season is ended. A couple days after. That's when all of these signings kind of happen. So
yeah. No, I'm just
I don't
saying,
even know
like,
if you're eligible to sign him
before.
I don't know if you're eligible to, though. That's the thing.
I think you can. I think you can sign players at any time. It's just they're not eligible for your team or the playoffs past the deadline. So I'm a little surprised we don't see teams do that more. Or maybe I've just misfigured the numbers on that or how the rules work, but
yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
there are quite a few teams that are looking into signing Shabanov. He had in his last 3 seasons in the KHL with Chelyabinsk Tractor, 67
Great team name,
right? The Tractor. 67 games, 31 points, 64 games, 50 points, a little bit better. And this year, 47, 44. So he's putting up decent numbers in the legit men's league over there. For a team that I've never really heard of. Pretty much everyone plays for CSKA or SKA Moscow, or St. Petersburg. So he's making some good moves over there, and there's a couple of teams already linked to him, those being the New York Islanders, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Philadelphia Flyers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Edmonton Oilers. A lot of people talking about it online were already convinced that he's either going to Tampa or Philly. Philly just has so many good Russian players right now. They've been kind of the Russian whisperers the past few years, getting Michkov over soon, getting Fedotov over. And he people thought he might go to Tampa just because he's 5'8", 157 pounds. So we'll probably sign him and he'll be really good. But I would love to see it, but we'll see who has the most enticing deal for him. If you sign a guy like this, they don't need an ELC, right?
Yeah, no, you can just sign to whatever.
So like they could just come out of nowhere and get a 7-year deal. I doubt any team would do that, but like
you realistically could, yeah.
They could get a big boy deal.
The two teams, and not even seeing the teams here, the two teams that I thought would be the most likely would be the Flyers and the Islanders. Obviously, Philly for the reasons you mentioned with Michkov and Fedotov. The Islanders, because that was kind of a big reason why they even signed Varlamov in the first place, was, Varlamov was the biggest piece that got Sorokin to come over. With having Sorokin and Varlamov and with their agent, that was a big part of why they were able to get Platkov, I think is how you pronounce it, who the Islanders signed to a 1-year deal at the end of last season. He was kind of what Shabanov is this year. He was kind of the number one KHL player that was looking to come over, and the Islanders were able to get him. So those are kind of the two teams that I would put near the top, as I think if they were to put in a legit offer, I think they have a very good chance just based on their history of bringing over Russian players and kind of their relationship with the KHL. So, but then you have the side of, if he wants to come and immediately be on a contender, then you can go to either Tampa, Vegas, or Edmonton, and you've got a good chance on those teams. So,
yeah. What does a contract generally for a guy like this look like? Like,
honestly, it's probably a 1 year, 850,000.
That low?
It's usually just for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, like Soplakov's making $950K this year. Like, I'm just thinking, like, if a team offers him $850K, like, would other teams not be like, well, he looks pretty decent, like, take a flyer on him for $950, even $1 million, try and sneak him? Like, if he's nothing and it's a 1-year contract, it doesn't matter too much. But if he's good,
yeah. But I think because the problem is, like, we've seen it before with KHL players where when they come over to the NHL, they can't adjust to it.
Yeah,
and so usually, not all the time, but more often than not, what you see with these guys when they come over from the KHL is, and then it's usually why they signed 1-year deals, because the first year is not about money. And if you're still making $850,000 playing the NHL, you should be happy. They usually will sign wherever they can put themselves in the best spot to succeed.
That's fair.
Whether that's through coaches, through training stuff, or just the team in itself, whatever is going to give them the best chance in their first year in the NHL to kind of make their mark and a name for themselves, they usually take that road. And then whether they sign with that team and stick with them, whether after the first year they're like, hey, thanks for everything, I'm going to this team now, whatever. But Vegas, who is the one Shipachov or whatever they brought over, and he played like 4 games in the NHL for him. He was the number one guy coming over from the KHL, and I'm pretty sure Vegas gave him like a 2-year, $2 million contract or something out of the gate. And I don't even know the exact reason for why he ended up leaving. I think he wasn't happy getting sent down to the AHL, and Vegas wasn't properly using him. And then he played like 4 games in the NHL, and he went back to the KHL and has stayed there. Whereas
it makes a lot of sense why guys
he goes to another team. He maybe would be in the NHL now. You never know. So
yeah, that's a pretty tough lineup to crack over there. So maybe he could have found a little bit of a better spot somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh no, this was back like Vegas was like first or second year. I mean, still a good team, but like not the elite level talent that they've built up over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I suppose.
So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I'm assuming he'll probably take the same route that some of these other guys did, where just go to where you've got the best chance to succeed.
But beyond that, is that kind of looks like everything we have here, unless you got anything else?
I do have one final thing that someone sent to me today. I was like, damn, these are pretty crazy numbers. So
are they more Quinn Hughes numbers?
No, but it is Vancouver. It is Elias Pettersson numbers.
Ooh.
So this goes from January 15th of last year, 2024, to January 15th of 2025. So a full year for Pettersson. Over that year, he is tied for 48th among NHL centers in goals. He is tied for 39th among NHL centers in points. And he's the 4th highest paid center in the NHL. So it's been a rough last year for Pettersson, and it definitely doesn't help the Canucks that they'd given him that big contract, and has definitely not been playing to really anywhere near that level of.
No, he really hasn't.
Of that money.
And
there's so many highs and lows with Vancouver. There really is.
It's a team that is trying so hard. They have such a good team. They're trying so hard to beat those bad vibes, but they keep crawling back. I didn't honestly love the contract when it was announced.
I didn't.
I love that they keep him around. I think they needed to keep Pettersson around, but 11.6? That's a very long time. And
at this point,
that's a lot of money.
If you're Vancouver, do you just say fuck it and you just trade both Miller and Pettersson?
If the right deals are out there for both of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
And my favorite thing, if I could, make it happen my way, I would love to see JT Miller go to the Rangers because they want him, and the Islanders are interested in Pettersson. I'd love to see him go to the Islanders. Just send him to 2 rival teams and say, all right, go beat the shit out of each other now.
2 rival teams
next 8
way
years
over there.
Yeah. Just get far away from us as possible and go beat the shit out of each other over there.
Honestly, that would be so funny.
That's what I would like to see. And also it could happen is Rangers are very interested in Miller, and Islanders are interested in Pettersson, and apparently Islanders have a lot of pieces that the Canucks are interested in. So, and it sucks.
They need to get
2 first-line centers, but
they need to get high-end forwards back.
Yeah,
in at least one of those, like a legitimate top guy, because losing out on them, like that's 2 guys on your top line or in your top 6 at least. Like they should be top line guys. So
yeah,
it's a good team, but that losing those guys would be a massive hole. So you can't just get back picks and prospects.
Yeah,
you need legitimate stuff there.
Yeah. And I think if you get the right deals, I think you do it and you just say, you know what? we're not even going to pick between the two of you. We're just going to wipe our hands clean and rebuild the vibes that these two have apparently just dismantled the team with as time goes on.
Yeah. If they choose to only move one of them, I think they need to move Miller.
I mean, on the face of it, yeah, literally just straight up because of the age.
Yeah.
Like,
and they've just had it sounds like Miller's had enough issues with other guys that it sounds like he's the root of the problem. And I think if you keep him and move Pettersson, first of all, you're keeping a guy that made you lose a guy like Elias Pettersson. That's not going to sit well. Also, he might start something with someone else. He's already started a couple different beefs with guys he's played with. So it's not, it's not something you want to deal with again. So yeah, I think it would probably just be move Miller. Unfortunately, he has a no move, but if you're sending him to the Big Apple, he probably doesn't care that much.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see what they do. That's one of the biggest things around the league right now. People are just waiting. One of them's totally getting moved before the deadline. It really seems almost unavoidable at this point. Locker room's in shambles. The team is not performing. We'll have to see what happens with them because 3-4-3 in their last 10. They're a point behind the Flames. They are the Canucks. 43 games into the year are 7 points ahead of the Anaheim Ducks. Yikes.
This time last year, they had a 20-point lead on the Edmonton Oilers, who went to the Stanley Cup final. So
like
that just goes to show how far back. And it's not even because Demko's hurt. Lankinen has been one of the better goalies this season. Like it's
been great.
I mean, the injury to Hronik didn't help, but man, vibes on the team are just bad. It's really what it is.
The difference between how good they were at this point last year and this year is a little bit more than a Philip Hronik.
Yeah.
But I think that's all
I believe that does. Oh, actually, we'll wrap this up with this is just a quick one. This is just a quick good news story. But the first part of it is the bad news of it. So I think it was yesterday, Evgeny Malkin's house was broken into.
Oh, right.
And they said that his 3 Stanley Cup championship rings have been stolen. 5 minutes ago, I just saw here, it was reported that the 3 rings were recovered.
Go.
So,
hell yeah. You love
Malkin's house was broken into, unfortunately, but he did get his, he does still have his 3 rings. No one can take that away from him.
Nice. I imagine if they didn't recover them, I hope that the team would have made 3 new ones and styled them to how they were each year. Like it's not just a guy with the franchise getting them stolen. It's Evgeny Malkin. Like
you don't win 1 cup if you don't have him.
Like I'm sure.
Well, maybe you have 1, but like you don't have 3 if you don't have Malkin.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have done right by him and the team will front the bill for those. Hell, Crosby on his own would have fronted the bills for him.
Yeah,
Malkin
like it's one thing for the players that like pawn their cup rings, but to just have them stolen from you, totally different thing.
Yeah, and such an integral guy. Did he win a Conn Smythe on the first one?
I think he did, yeah.
So, yeah. But luckily they don't have to do that. They were recovered. I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually thinking about talking about that before the podcast started, and then I just completely forgot. Yes, he did win a Conn Smythe trophy in 08-09.
36 points in 24 games.
Absolute beast.
Probably should have had 2. I'm still on the side that he should have had 2, but hey, 1's still better than none.
Yeah, maybe. I'd have to take a look at the year.
I believe that does wrap up everything we've got for this episode. If I'm correct there?
I do believe so.
Sweet. Well, once again, thank you to everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. as always, if you want to join on the conversations, you can click on any of the links down below. You can come to any of our socials, talk hockey with us. Braden, as always, give us your final thought here.
Final thoughts. 08-09 Art Ross, 08-09 Conn Smythe. In 2009, Evgeny Malkin was the best hockey player in the entire world.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Most points regular season, Conn Smythe for winning the cup afterwards.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to argue.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think that's also a big thing that settles the Evgeny Malkin Patrick Kane debate. We'll wrap it up there.
Also, go watch that Minnesota Nashville game on Saturday. It's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's gonna be a really good game. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to discussing the chaos of that and the fallout early on next week. So once again, thank you to everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys out on the ice on Tuesday next week.